This is News 8 This Morning.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Wednesday, 6 a.m. I'm Eric Connert.
And I'm Netta Irampor, filling in for Stella Escobedo this morning. Glad you're with us.
Yeah, let's get right into your headlines. Thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it. Let's talk about coronavirus now. Pacific Beach being pinpointed as a hot spot for cases in the county. Overall, there are 14 new coronavirus deaths and 498 newly confirmed cases. Out of the 6,600 tests, 8% came back positive. So the county's 14-day rolling average is now up to 5.7%. 8 new community outbreaks were identified, which means there have been 20 in the last 7 days.
And News 8's Chris Groh joining us live in Pacific Beach with why the county is zeroing in on PB in particular. Good morning, Chris. What's happening there?
Good morning, Eric and Netta. Well, essentially what the county is looking at is two things: beach bars and behavior. Now, obviously bars are closed, but a lot of businesses, and bars are no exclusion, have been trying to get around some of these rules by staging outside, serving food from nearby businesses in order to stay open, something a lot of businesses want to do during this pandemic while also maintaining safety. But when you look at the numbers specifically here for Pacific Beach, the county is alarmed over this. In fact, it's pretty startling when you compare them to nearby neighborhoods. As of yesterday, PB has 438 documented COVID cases. While it's not bad as other South County cities, it's more than double the number of cases the region saw this time last month. Now, those numbers are the reason why PB is now labeled a hotspot. As for how we got here, officials point to the beach bars and behavior. While Governor Newsom banned bars and ordered them to shut down about 2 weeks ago now, many establishments here just on Garnett are serving food and going with patio dining to remain open. That's allowed for people to get together and sometimes ignore best practices like social distancing. And really the county is looking at young people, that demographic there, for not wearing a mask when sitting down at their tables, or potentially just walking around, obviously not wearing a mask, not following social distancing. But we also spoke with Sarah Burns, the executive director of Discover Pacific Beach, a local business improvement district. And she says that restaurants and bars are really trying to do their part. They're trying to find that balance between keeping everyone safe and trying to stay open.
It's not surprising to us that restaurants and bars are showing outbreaks, because that's where people are taking their mask off to eat and drink and socialize versus other places. So it's kind of the only place to go.
And Dr. Wilma Wooten, the county's public health officer, did say recently that, look, unless this behavior gets any better, PB is likely to see those numbers increase, which already have labeled this neighborhood a hotspot. Eric, Netta?
Chris, thank you. Negotiations on a coronavirus relief bill will continue today on Capitol Hill. Republicans and Democrat leaders admit they remain very far apart on several key issues. This includes a GOP proposal to protect businesses and other entities from COVID-19 related lawsuits. Democrats are strongly opposed to the current provision, while Republicans say it's a non-starter.
So every bill has to start somewhere. The Republicans are in the majority in the Senate. This is the starting place.
Senate Republicans have presented us with a half-hearted, half-baked legislative proposal.
One of the biggest sticking points is the expiring federal unemployment insurance benefit that added the $600 a week to an individual's state benefits. Democrats want to extend the payment as is. Republicans want to reduce them to $200 per week and then eventually to 70% of what the person was making before they lost their job. Also, another part of the proposal that's getting pushed back from both sides on the aisle, non-pandemic related demands to include almost $2 billion in funding for a new FBI building.
As thousands of San Diegans continue to struggle to pay rent during this coronavirus pandemic, city leaders providing a bit more time for them to make those payments. Now, under a compromise reached by City Council, rent for San Diegans will now come due on December 30th. That's overall since the start of the pandemic. They've been putting out these eviction moratorium. So it's a 3-month extension now on those moratoriums. It does not change the moratorium on evictions. That means that still expires on September 30th, but they have until the end of the year to pay back that money. Council President Pro Tem Barbara Bree voting against the motion, saying that the council should focus on demanding relief for tenants at the state and federal levels, while also stressing the unintended consequences of not paying rent on time.
if you don't pay it, you eventually will get evicted. Your credit rating will be ruined. And so this, to me, is a cruel hoax to tenants.
Now, because this motion passed with only 5 votes, it was 5-4, it still must pass a second reading and is also susceptible to a veto by the mayor. Chula Vista also extended its eviction moratorium. The council voting in favor of a 1-month extension to the moratorium on evictions, and now that is set to expire August 31st. Chula Vista leaders have already set aside more than $1 million for small businesses as part of a relief package, and they established a free permit option to allow many businesses and restaurants to operate outdoors. And right now we're going to take a live look here. The ceremony happening for the late Congressman John Lewis underway right now at the U.S. Capitol. So you can see right there, they're going to be taking his hearse on a final tour around Washington, D.C. In fact, it's expected to pass his home on Capitol Hill. So you can see them taking the hearse into that vehicle, and they'll do a motorcade.
What a powerful image this is. 8 service members putting Lewis's body into the back of that hearse there, his flag-draped coffin. We can tell you that this departure ceremony is at Joint Base Andrews at 7 a.m. our time. Then after that happens, a plane carrying his body and his family will then head to Atlanta. So he will lie in state at the Georgia Capitol Rotunda later today. And a funeral will be held for Lewis tomorrow morning at the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. When you just watch this, it's just so emotional, so powerful. He meant so much to this nation, and we will be following the developments in Atlanta here today, where that will be his final resting place. Let's check on your morning rush here. A San Diego County Sheriff's deputy accused of child molestation is set to go before a judge to answer to charges. 27-year-old Jalen Fleer is facing more than a dozen felony charges. He was arrested last week following a months-long investigation, which was sparked by an anonymous tip sent to Crime Stoppers back in April. Fleer has worked for the Sheriff's Department for the past 5 years. His arraignment is scheduled for 10:30 at the South Bay Courthouse this morning. La Mesa Police Chief Walt Vasquez says he is done reviewing the third-party investigation into a controversial arrest of a young black man near the Grossmont Trolley Center back on May 27th. 23-year-old Amari Johnson says he was simply waiting for a friend when a police officer approached him, pushed him, and then arrested him, accusing Johnson of assault. All charges against Johnson were eventually dropped. The findings from that third-party investigation are expected to be released soon. And La Mesa's Citizen Public Safety Task Force plans to hold a special teleconference today. The meeting will review drafts for the public complaint process and the Police Oversight Board. The task force will also select a vice chairman. In January, La Mesa approved a task force made to bridge the gap between law enforcement officers and members of the community. The public may view and comment on the meeting. It starts today at 5 p.m.
In San Diego, Councilmember Chris Cate is submitting waiver proposals to the San Diego Unified School Board to reopen schools. So this proposes to have teachers stay home and teach virtually to students who then attend virtual classes on campus. He also proposes to have college graduates assist on campus. So he's thinking of unique ways to try to help out throughout this next school year. Waivers for in-person learning are only permitted by the governor if counties are off the state monitoring list for 14 consecutive days, and they must be signed off by county health officials. So Councilmember Cate says his 5 proposals will help families who need to work and can't stay home for distance learning. Those 5 proposals do include waivers, open-air classrooms, staggered start times, homeschool stipends, and in-class assistance.
We're not forcing anybody, we're not proposing to force any parent to put their kids back into school.
Cate is also proposing to open libraries for classes and child care and education-related tax credits. He made his proposal during public comment, so the school board could not necessarily comment on it at the time or take any action. But later on in the hour, we'll discuss some concerns parents have regarding school closures and their students' emotional health. And if you're wondering how you can stay up to date on the latest information about schools, we have this resource. You just text the keyword schools to 858-571-8888. We'll send you a link, and you can check out what your child's school district is doing for this fall.
Still to come here, new changes coming to so-called dreamers, as the White House says they are now denying new applications. And presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden says he is soon going to announce his pick for a running mate. Plus, some people are not happy about this concert that was put on by the popular music group The Chainsmokers. It was supposed to be a drive-in, but it turned into this. Details next.